Okay. So, Laura, I'm so happy you're here. I'm so into what we've now coined these, which is success and progress. I'm really grateful that you're here and what you're craving.
Thank you, Molly. I'm grateful to be here.
I also want to say, in the beauty of my life and the beauty of this work I get to do, you are one of the people I really, really learn a lot from. And so I am excited to hear. I feel like I'm about to get to go into big learning today. And so I know Laura, what, almost 2 years now?
Yep.
And we met in the Breaking Up a Sugar Facebook group. And you're someone who isn't very involved in the group and in the other activities. So I actually feel like we have a really lovely standing relationship. And so it does feel like having a friend to talk to. We like to keep the podcast at 30 minutes. So let's try to, really get to business. So talk to me a little bit about your story and, what was the relationship with food like before and where are you now? I don't know. Tell us all the things. Tell us what we need to know, Laura.
All right. It took me a long time to get here to you, Molly. I knew early on as an adolescent that my relationship with food was not normal, was not healthy. And I cried a lot about not being able to manage my food, not being able to be the size body I thought I should be. I'm tall. I don't know if you know that about me. I'm like 5'10", and I had a little old Southern grandmother that used to just tell me I was enormous, and so I have some family background about that, feeling ashamed of my size. It didn't get better as I got older. The freshman, whatever, 10 was a freshman 30 or 40 for me. I went to OA for maybe 10 years, starting in my mid-20s. I can be successful once with something, always, but the falling down and getting back up never worked well for me.
Can we pause there for a second? Because I think that is the story of so many of us. So you're sort of like, can you walk me through like that one hit wonder and what happened? So you say I can be successful once. Can we sort of unpack that for a minute?
Yeah, I think I would take 5 years off of trying to do something, and then I would be desperate and really committed and come in and follow every single rule and do everything everyone told me, and hang on for dear life for a while. And then once it stopped not working, I didn't have any of the tools to go back. It's very black and white thinking, like I was either doing it right, losing weight.
Like, how would it stop? Like, we can use any of your diet attempts as examples, but how would it stop working? Like, how does that go for you?
Well, what usually would happen is there'd be a holiday or a vacation or a life event that was too big to manage without depending on food. Frequently, I would start drinking wine when I stopped eating sugar or sweets. And then I'd start drinking too much wine, which would then open up the cupboards at night. And then pretty soon I was just in a mess.
It's like if we were in therapy, I'd say like, a mess is not a therapeutic term, but I actually feel like a mess is a very therapeutic term in that particular sentence.
It just,
the wine and the sugar and the wine and the sugar and the wine and the sugar is a story I relate to very deeply. And then we sprinkle some shame and some more demoralization and some hopelessness on top of that.
I mean, I've spent most of my life thinking I was a fat loser. And of course, I look at pictures and I probably wasn't as fat as I thought. And I certainly wasn't a loser. Like intellectually, I knew I was a single mom for 20 years. I worked full time. I managed my life pretty well, except for taking care of myself.
Yeah. And it's amazing how we can align ourselves to being a loser as a function of not being able to be successful on a diet that's created for us to fail at.
Right.
Ain't that a kick in the, I mean, as we
Yeah.
move as sort of my own research moves into diet culture, it's like because if you really listen to that story, you're one of the most remarkable people I know, as it turns out.
And I have a lot of will. I'm pretty disciplined and willful, and I've quit a lot of things. I quit smoking about 25 years ago. I quit it multiple times, like a heavy smoker. And then the last time I said, if I don't stay quit this time, I'm just going to smoke. And the disease is better than the cure, because it was so hard. And I can do those really hard things, but at some point, I can. And the problem, of course, with food, as you know, is it happens every day, multiple times a day.
Right.
And you get a lot of support when you quit smoking cigarettes. Everyone.
Sure. There's lots of people who say, yeah, best decision ever made. Yeah, it was so hard for me too.
Yeah.
With food, you didn't experience that, huh?
No. Everyone is like, oh, just this once, or you're being so restrictive, or that's never going to work because you're cutting out an important part of
enjoyment. Right. Yeah.
Which I never enjoyed. I don't particularly like food that much. Like, I'm not a foodie. I hate to cook. I'm like, to me, food has always been at best inconvenient. Like, and
I think with the sugar, I think they say this thing in 12-step, like to control it is not to enjoy it, and to enjoy it is not to control it. Like I relate to that very deeply. And I do think like I've gotten very high, binging on sugar, but it's never like ended in enjoyment. It's ended in what you're saying. What's wrong with me? There's something so wrong with me. I'm never able to get this. I hate my body, hate myself. I mean, my mind goes pretty deep and dark. I think we relate on that level. And I love this idea that you're talking about. I think it's such an amazing, relatable point, which is that you're very good at doing things, and you're very good at doing things perfectly. And even quitting cigarette smoking is very easy to do perfectly.
It is. It really is.
Even with a quick relapse in, right? You're like, okay, I need to stop doing this. Like, okay, I had a cigarette. I need to stop doing cigarettes. Like, oof, with food, it's not like, well, I need to stop doing this food.
Right.
It's so complex.
And I think, Molly, that's the difference, that what you teach us in Breaking Up with Sugar through your book and your coaching and the Facebook group, you teach and reinforce is that it isn't a thing you do perfectly. I mean, that has been so freeing for me that, if I have too much volume, it doesn't mean I failed. Even I have been fortunate that I haven't had any foods that are meant to be made of flour or sugar. They might have snuck some in on me somewhere, but I haven't had anything sweet or anything like flour, bread or pasta.
Which is amazing, which I'd like to put a pin in and get to how that fluff you did that. That's not to be overlooked. But what I hear you saying is this idea of embracing the idea that we don't do this perfectly has been
at all. Yeah, at all. And that the expectation is not there. Like, I do not have to be perfect at this Breaking Up with Sugar to be successful, to heal, to grow.
Yeah.
I reread your book this morning about harm reduction, which was not really a concept I understood much. I was sort of, basically eat it all and then keep going for another week or month or year, or not eat any. And so this idea that sometimes it just doesn't happen, right?
Yeah.
And oh well. And one of my favorite things of yours is it's 4:00 and then it's 4:01.
Right.
I never had that experience before. It was 4:00 for a really long time.
Right. If we were unpacking that, what you mean is that if I eat something at 4:00, I can be not eating that thing at 4:01. I can actually change my behavior.
Right. I didn't know that
I
I
didn't
could do
either.
that.
It was that light bulby for me too. I was like, oh, so if I just take like, I could just have a 3 bites of this cookie that doesn't work for me and stop there instead of eating the sleeve and then going to have froyo and then
Yeah.
and not doing. So I have a quick question, kind of
Sure.
off topic, but that's how it is with friends at lunch. Somebody said to me, what do you mean by doing it imperfectly? And she was a bit offended, I think. Like, what do you like? You guys all talk about it, you do it imperfectly. Like, what does that even mean? Does that mean you just eat what you want? Does that mean that you're forgiving of yourself? And like, it sounds like this is really the piece that's really resonated with your, because like, just let's get to some quick facts and figures. You've been sugar flour free for how long?
A year and a half.
And talk me through like just quick and dirty, like intend to go back. What's your relationship with food like? What's your relationship with life like? Like, what's your
Well,
deal?
I don't intend ever to go back. I don't intend anytime soon to go back.
Why not?
Because the cost is not worth it.
Mm,
The freedom you get from not being trapped by your cravings, like that cycle we talked about in the beginning of, you know, binge, feel bad, drink, binge, feel, it's like it is so time consuming,
isn't it?
and it just weighs you down in shame. And so to not be perfect means to know that, some days it just works a lot better than others. There are a lot of things I do, a lot of things every day I do to stay connected to myself so that I don't think that sugar or anything else in that, anything that's going to trip my brain is going to make my life better.
Hmm. And so when this woman is saying to us, what do you mean imperfect? Like, first of all, I so understand her. I mean, that would enrage me if I was deep in this, right? Because I think usually when you're deep entrenched in binging, you're really deeply entrenched in diet culture. And if anything's like trying to convince you that you need to be perfect, it's diet culture. They make a whole lot of money off of that. And so we're like, yeah, I mainly do it perfectly. And then when I don't, I just try to do it perfectly again. It's so gentle, isn't it?
It is, but also, it's that tension between having guidelines and respecting them and being gentle with yourself when you don't meet them. And to me, I don't understand it psychologically or in any way, but I know that I need to be pushing on both of them together. That if I'm just strict on the guidelines or just gentle with whatever I do, that I find loopholes. But if I push them together at the same time, then I can stand up straight.
I think that is so perfectly said. I have no words. And as we both know,
It's hard to do.
that's quite unusual. Um, yeah, I think that's right. Because I think if we're just being nothing but gentle, then we're probably not taking care of ourselves in the way that we need to. And if we're just sitting and saying, well, these are the guidelines and I have to do them, and if I'm done, I'm a bad person, then that is also going to cause us to be not taking care of ourselves. And when we push on both of them, we stand up straight. I mean, that's a meme. That's a quotable. I love that. So how did you even come to pass that you might be able or might want to do this? I mean, what was your life like before it? What was your relationship like? Like, what was the darkness like? I love the dark,
Yeah.
darkness is my love language.
Well, I mean, I had all the usual darknesses, the cycles of weight gain and weight loss and all of that. But I had just finished like a 10-week course at Duke on mindfulness eating. And I wasn't able to get to any discernibly different place.
Mm.
And
That must have felt terrible to spend
it
10 weeks
felt
doing something.
familiar. It
Oh,
felt
I bet it
familiar.
also felt familiar. Yeah.
But what happened, that was the week of the lockdown from COVID. And so here in the South, as you may be learning, when there's a threat of a snowstorm, you you go out and you buy a bunch of wine and sweets and bread and milk for some reason, but it
And
was
toilet
like,
paper. Yes.
yeah, yeah, it was like a snow day when they locked us down, or I think further south they have hurricane parties. Is that idea? Like this was somehow get your rations. And so I kept getting wine and drinking it all and then go to the store. And then I think, well, I need chocolate. And so about 6 weeks into the pandemic, I thought, I'm not gonna survive this if I keep up eating and drinking at this pace. And so
And Laura, you have people living with you too.
I do. That
Well,
makes
I
it
mean, I guess I
harder.
always just think about how impactful
Yeah,
my disease was on those around me watching me kill myself,
right. And I have, even more importantly, I have a 17-year-old stepdaughter who, yeah, I would be, drinking starting at dinner, and then she'd want to know who ate all or whatever's the next day, and, just really shamed of myself. So I decided one morning that I needed to not be drinking. And so that led me to Annie Grace and This Naked Mind. And so after a couple months of not drinking, I was drinking a lot of ginger beers and things with tons of sugar. And I thought, I'm feeling worse and not better.
Wow.
And somebody directed me to her interview with you, I think in January of 2020. She interviewed you. And I know some people have problems with one and some with the other, but for whatever reason, my brain is particularly sensitive to glucose. And
Yeah.
so that's how I heard, and I didn't even need to read your book. I mean, I did stop the sugar, of course. I got to the flour a few chapters later.
So I know. I know. People don't really dislike me on the sugar because everyone's like, yeah, that makes sense to me. And then I have to drop that second bomb of
Yeah.
grain flour. And I think a lot of people want to punch me in the face, and I, as an angel hair pasta scone lover, I want to punch myself in the face. I mean, I want to punch science in the face. I don't know what to say about it, but that's a harder one, isn't it?
It is. And I think for me, I really basically, it's kind of like language immersion. I just went to school with This Naked Mind and breaking up with sugar. And I did a few other things, and
What'd you do? Come on. You got to tell us. Come on.
I went to online support groups, both, I was in a coaching program through Annie Grace's program. I went to everything that anyone offered. I posted every day. I read every day, and I developed this morning routine that I think is what makes the difference from the way I used to do quitting to how I do it now.
Yeah, I want to talk about this. And I have to say, I'm really grateful you said all of that because, as you well know, because you are a fighter and I do spend an enormous amount of time with you, I believe so wholeheartedly that one thing that goes wrong, and especially because diet culture sells it this way, diet culture is like, no, like just 7 days, 7-day cleanse. And then everyone, and we're so, I love our beautiful earnest minds because we do a 7-day cleanse and somehow just like dissonance is so beautiful. We don't think about day 8. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, or we
And
do. We
certainly,
think we'll be, we'll
and
be
certainly
free
if we're
again.
having a moment, and I know people have issues when I talk about this, but I'm sorry. But like, if we're talking about addiction, the truth is if you go back on day 8 to the way you were, you're actually progressing your addiction, right? Because you're starting a new level of tolerance to the substance. So I love what you're saying, because I always say that the solution needs to be as big as the problem. And what you're saying is, and I love the idea that you did it during the pandemic. You're like, I don't know if I understood that or not, Molly, but I was like a seeker. And I just went and did every single thing I possibly could with the most earnest and open mind that I can. And here I am doing it differently. So talk us through a little bit, like any challenges along the way? Like, or was it just like the straight shot of like, woohoo?
No, it was really hard. In the beginning, it's hard when
What
you're
was hard
doing
about it, do you think?
the physical cravings are really powerful. I found my husband to be incredibly annoying during my sugar detox. And I felt really insecure about going anywhere, like going to visit my sister, and how was I going to manage not to drink wine with her, not to eat her good cooking, or,
Yeah.
I was afraid of engaging with the world. And so I am really grateful for COVID for that reason. I'm not for all the other harm it's brought, but, it gave me, a chance to be in a cocoon for a while,
Yeah.
and that really helped. But now that I'm going to my second Thanksgiving, Christmas, I'm like, I don't. I remember being really worried, and now I'm like, it doesn't seem that complicated to me. So
It's amazing what a bunch of months in a new
yeah,
behavior can do for you. I'm always so conscious about making it sound easy when it's not. And for people, I mean, first of all, I need to say the idea that you quit drinking and you quit sugar and you kind of righted your relationship with alcohol and food at the same time is absolutely spectacular.
well, to me though, they're the same thing, and that's where like maybe someone in AA is different than someone like on this Naked Mind, is that for me, my brain just responds to alcohol like it does sugar.
Mhm.
And so it was very clear to me it was the same thing. So I would trade them for 40 years. I've traded alcohol and sugar, alcohol and sugar. And I was like, I'm not going to get anywhere. And I'm going to spend all this time doing something that I'm going to fail at if I don't do both of them.
So it's like you would either be in the camp of over consuming alcohol, and then when you would stop over consuming alcohol, you'd be in the camp of over consuming
Right.
sugar and flour.
Yeah.
All the same. I mean, I don't drink or eat, we're the same camp. And I'm like, whew, what vision I have. I don't know about you, Laura, but like vision for better or for worse though. Like I don't like I'm like you, like I wouldn't trade this vision for all the tea in China, as they say, but like having vision is not always such a treat.
Although, I mean, and I see some people in the Facebook group, and I understand because I turned 60 during COVID, and it's a lot easier to do things at 60. When I was working full time and had the kids, and I didn't have the time or flexibility to really submerge myself in this. And so
Do
I
you think
think it,
that's true, or do you think you didn't realize the necessity of reformulating your life?
well, it's never the opposite. It's always somewhere in the
Ain't
middle.
it?
I think that I would have had more time to take care of myself if I took care of myself. But I do think the demands of being a mom and working full
Oh
time
yeah,
and family responsibilities, it does make it harder. It does.
absolutely. I just don't think makes it impossible.
No, it
I'm
doesn't.
always cautious of my sickest
Right.
self listening to this, being like, well, I definitely can't do it. Then I have to wait till I'm
Right.
60. And I would
Right.
hate for that to be.
Right. Well, and as I look back at opportunities I missed because I felt less than because
Mhm.
I weighed more,
Yeah. Well,
ironically.
not just weighing more. I mean, I
Yeah,
just think it's really hard to love yourself when you're harming yourself.
yeah,
And I
yeah.
think
I
it seems
agree.
like we have really sort of like as deeply entrenched in and as addiction as I was, and I actually need to say to everyone listening, I love what you're saying because I think you depersonalize this so beautifully by really talking about your brain chemistry so clearly, right? Like this
Yeah.
is so amoral for you. It sounds like you're like, yep, this
And
is
it
how
didn't
my brain
used to
functions
be.
when I put this into my body. Like you're not like I'm a bad person or
Yeah. And I think I really learned that through this Naked Mind, that it's
yeah,
the drink, not the drinker. And I think of that it's the food, not the eater. I thought there was something wrong with me
yeah,
for a really long time. And
yeah.
just changing that belief has changed so much.
And I think you were able to change that beliefs just through science. And I think it's incredibly powerful. And maybe part of the reason that you're able to be so successful at it is that you don't take it so morally or personally.
Right. Right. And that phrase that you say, that not my food, like I just, when people are talking about holiday food or whatever, I'm like, this is not my food.
Yeah.
So, enjoy it, but it's not for me.
One of the biggest questions that I always get, which I think is you're really answering it in a really beautiful way, which I need to say, like, I don't think breaking up with sugar is for everybody. And I actually think the story you're telling is not necessarily one just of breaking up with sugar. It's about really finding what works for you when it comes to your relationship with food, which is most people's dream, right? Most people who struggle with food are like, just tell me what to do, right? Just tell me what I need to do. And you're sort of like, well, my brain chemistry was off. So I took the things that messed up with my brain chemistry and I really want to get back. And I think the other thing I'm hearing is that, and then I like learned that if I happen to slip on that, not to make it into a big flippin' fireworks show. But so many people say, how is breaking up with sugar like not a diet? How is it not a diet? And I guess how do you, because you are down with diet culture. How do you do that? Like, how do you make it so that it doesn't feel like a diet?
Because it's not about the food. I think diets
Tell me
are all
more.
about what you eat, when you eat it, how you eat it, what's in it. To me, it's about respecting yourself, listening to yourself, taking care of yourself, following the practices. Like you have the toolbox. It's like using that is not a diet. It's not about food, you know. It's
Yeah.
about learning how to live your life so that when you interact with food, you're using it for nourishment and not to make the pain go away.
Yeah. And you do that imperfectly, it sounds like.
Oh, yeah.
So can you talk me through that? Like what happens for you? So you'll overeat from time to time. Can you talk us through that?
Yeah, it's usually at dinner time. And it's the thing I'm still have a lot of work to do around the idea of
I
not
wouldn't say a
enough.
lot of work, Laura.
I
Let's
have
not, we
work
don't need
to
to
do
sign that
around
contract. Just how about just some work?
some work around not enough and more. Like I feel like at dinner time, it's like that's the last chance to eat for the day. And that plate doesn't feel like it's enough. So somehow I'll convince myself that more is okay. And I see the theme play in other areas of my life, like shopping, like that's not enough. I need more of something.
Yeah. I need 3 white t-shirts.
And
Not just one.
right,
Yeah.
right, of course.
Yeah.
And that's probably my that's what I'm working on right now. I've set my intention for the holiday season. And for me, it ends in the middle of January because that's my birthday. So that's I have a bigger triangle than some people. And I am just working on the word you use. I love one civilian plate. I grew up as a military brat, and I know what a soldier's plate looks like. So one civilian plate is my aspiration for the holidays.
Yeah. To those listening, people ask, what do I do at these parties? And I think parties are really hard. And I think buffets are really hard because I think what you're saying is just like that not enough that really fuels addictions and eating disorders. Like I need more. I need to feel safe. I need to feel grounded. What if I want more? What if I'm still hungry? And that so comes usually from our parents controlling what we eat. I mean, this thing runs deep, And so my suggestion always when we're at parties, I want us to enjoy ourselves. It's like there's a lot of people who say, bring your scale with you, bring your own food, bring your this. And those are all options, of course, but like I like to have a good time. And so my suggestion is always one civilian plate. And what I mean by that is Laura and I are made of the same cloth because you can hand me a plate and I could decorate that thing. You know what I can make that plate into about 7 plates. And by the way, like really stealthfully, right? Like stuff it in here. Like if you only get one suitcase, I can stuff a little under there, a little there, high balance. So it's like a civilian one that you would serve to somebody and say, here you go. I made you a plate. And they would say, thank you. Not like, wow, that's a lot of food. How's that going for you?
Overall, it's going pretty well. Sometimes I don't like it.
Yeah.
And it's just made me more aware that I feel like I want more at night, which has always been a trouble time for me for eating. And so I need
Well, trouble
to,
time for you for feeling maybe also too,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Pardon my
yeah.
therapist.
I need to be investigating that being a little curious about what I want more of. And I think of your podcast name and, what am
Right.
I craving?
What do you
And,
think you are craving in those moments? Do you know?
sometimes I just want the comfort that
Yeah, the
food,
known, like the
yeah,
known comfort. I know, like, because I think that if you've been a binger your whole life or an overeater, you want like there is something very familiar and
yeah.
safe about having overeaten, having that big fullness in your belly, having that numbness that comes with the fullness. That's very familiar.
And some of it is the fear of restriction, like, when you've been on a diet and like you've used all your points for the
Ugh.
day kind of feeling.
Oh, Laura, I just had a pain in my chest when you said that.
And, the thing that I've replaced a lot of the language in my head with your voice, and I hear things like, you're not going to starve before breakfast. And I just tell myself, if you really need more food, if that's what you need more of, you can have more tomorrow.
Mm.
And that is a big relief. But
I
I
also
think,
wanted to say, like, I think this voice that you're creating is a very kind mother.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I always remember I started a boarding school when I was in my 20s for weight loss. And I would walk into that dining hall and like the little girl who had all of her food restricted would just come out, right? Because I was like, I could eat whatever I wanted. And there was so much food. And I ended up like binging my brains out for the first 3 weeks, which is not a good look for me in a lot of ways, but especially as like the clinical director of a boarding school. And I actually, that's where I found my mother. That's where I found the kind mother. I mean, it was many years until I healed after that. But I would just say this thing to myself. I pass this on to other people listening today. Like, I love yours, which like if you're really hungry, we can eat tomorrow. Mine was I put my hands on my heart before I'd walk in the dining hall and I would say, Molly, you can eat whatever you want whenever you want. Like I wanted to take the urgency and the scarcity out of the experience, you know? And so I'd be like, literally, you could go to the supermarket, you could leave work today, you could call out sick to work and just go get all the pineapple that exists in the supermarket and eat all of that. And so it was like able for me to like, and I do that a lot in my own life. Like, what do you want to order for dinner? If you knew that you could have as much food as you wanted anytime, and taking that. And this is, by the way, if you want to know how breaking up with sugar or finding your path, creating a relationship with food is different than dieting, this is exactly how. Right. Because right now, Laura and I are not on somebody's rules. We're talking to our inner child and we're finding ourselves in all of this. And that's when I say it's a relationship with food is a relationship with yourself. I mean, have you seen that? Have you seen yourself get to know yourself differently? And how's that been for you?
Oh yeah, I have. I some of it is just in my head, but some of it is in my life. I really do have a bigger life than I think I've ever had before. I'm not ashamed of myself. And to me, the whole thing is about self-efficacy. I can keep promises to myself.
Mm.
And so all the sort of uh, tapes about how incapable I am of really doing the thing, they're not there. So I have, there's just a lot more space to do things and relate with people and accomplish things without all that background noise and baggage about,
Did you get a little braggy?
could I get a little braggy?
Yeah. Can you
Like, what
show
if
off for us? Like how is that? It's a little general. I love a good specific.
well, I was thinking of stopping my college consulting business because I don't know, I was just this and that, and now I don't have all that doubt in me about myself. And I feel like my relationship with my husband, I stand up for myself better, and I say what I need more often.
Hmm.
And the same with my sister. I mean, I've set really clear boundaries in a way that, before I would just do what anybody wanted me to do. And
Mhm.
I wouldn't worry about standing up for whether it was my food or going to sleep or, you know,
Wow.
yeah,
All that, all that by quitting drinking and quitting sugar.
I
It's
know.
amazing though, I think. But I do want to say, and I heard this and I want to make sure, because I'm sure people are curious, because you said, I think that this morning, I think that my routines are really the things that have made the difference. I want to say, I also think that your relationship with perfectionism and your relationship with self-forgiveness, just as your therapist for a second, is a key here, because you can come back to when we're able to self-forgive very quickly, we're able to come back to our wisdom again.
Mm-hmm.
And which is like, to me, I had the same experience of this. Like, wait, you can just not stop doing the thing, self-forgive really quickly and just get on with your life. Like, whoa. So what is what's your routine? Like, what do you do? Walk us through it. And was your routine a year and a half ago the same as it is today?
No, I didn't. It's really hard to get up and meditate when you're hungover
Word.
or write in your journal where all you want to say is, I hate you. Why did you do that? Why can't you do this better? So now I get up and I meditate, and
How
then I
long?
journal 15 minutes.
Whoa.
And then I journal 3 pages, because that's what someone said to Cameron. What is her
Yeah,
name?
Julia Cameron.
Because I read that during lockdown. So I added
Artist Way, for
that.
those of you who are like, what are they? Artist Way, such a beautiful book. What a great book.
And I didn't do anything else she recommended, but I did do that. And then I read some sort of personal development. Right now, it's Pema Chodron is my go-to person.
What a teacher.
And then I get some exercise in the morning. I mean, it was so easy in lockdown because there was no competition for my time.
I know. I'm finding that too. Like, coming into the world, it's like,
Yeah.
it was I mean, we're really blessed, obviously, that we had this experience of lockdown, but
Right.
bringing real life back into my recovery, it's a new negotiation. And I'm excited you're experiencing that too, because I don't feel so alone in it.
And I learned, like, I was just out of town for the week. And so instead of having 15 minutes and 3 pages, I did 7 minutes and 1 page.
Yes.
And that was that. Talk about anti-perfection. I was like, just enough to keep it fresh.
Yeah. And I think just enough to, like, cause I wake up with no plug in any outlet. And so I have to do something, even if it's just saying, thank you, 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 thank you. And then that's my plug. I mean, me too. I love a luxury of a 30-minute morning practice, but my life too, it's like, sometimes it's big and quick and I'm late, but I have to always do something to get my plug in from, eating disorder to recovery every morning. So if you could give one piece of hope, or I hate the word advice, but of hope to somebody, or even just to yourself 2 years ago, what would you think you would want to say?
I think if you just give yourself enough time to get to the other side of the physical addiction, it comes. You have to do the work. It's work every day. You have to connect with other people who understand. You have to read and learn about how to handle it. But you end up freeing up so much more of your time by putting in the time to do the work.
Any regrets about any of this?
No, not at all. No, I just feel really lucky, and I'm excited for this decade of, I just didn't want to go into a new decade with all this old baggage. And I felt like I was running out of decades to improve upon. And so I just, I guess my regret is that it didn't happen earlier, but things happen the way they happen. So
Yeah, I think it's a beautiful thing, what a gift you're giving yourself.
Yeah, it is.
Spend the back 9 in this really new space of being available and awake and in just such a different space. And I need to say, I think my favorite part of you, well, my 2 favorite parts of you is, I think you're a seeker, and I think my experience of you is that you never think you've learned it. Like, we practice intensati together, and you're never like, okay, I did intensati, I know it now. You're just like, oh, what's next week? What's next week? What's next week? And I think that's how you end up being in really healthy relationship with food and yourself, is that you're such a student of all of this. And then I also do think you give the best feedback of anybody I know. Whenever I'm beta testing something, I bring it to Laura because I know that she's always going to give me an honest assessment of what's happening. And I value you as a friend and as a part of our community. And I know you were so nervous to do this, and you are such a gift to all of us. And so I thank you, and happy almost birthday.
Thank you, Molly. Thanks for all the work you've done on our behalf.
My great pleasure. Love you.
Bye.